Grace and peace be with you, and greetings from Bethany United Church of Christ here in Claremont, North Carolina, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. You know, when I was a kid, there were several movies that I always looked forward to watching this time of year. And there's one that I have seen pretty much every year since I first saw it. And that is Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And while there are many remakes out there, the version that I still am drawn to is the original animated version. The one that was the same one that my grandparents had on VHS tape. That was how I first experienced the Grinch. Now, not only is it a nostalgic movie that marks this season that we are journeying through as we head toward Christmas, it's also a movie that, of course, has a lesson in it. And there is a lesson that is often drawn from the film. It's this idea that, Christmas is about so much more than the stuff. And that's an important lesson. We should hold on to that as well. But I think there's another lesson within that film. And it is a lesson on peace and what restorative peace actually looks like. Now, before we go too much farther into Whoville and up Mount Crumpet, we should just pause for a moment and ask ourselves, well, what does peace mean? What is peace? I mean, after all, it's a pretty universal concept. There's a word for it in languages all around this globe. And in fact, in recent years, the idea of highlighting the fact that peace is something that is found in cultures around the world has been increased by the presence of the peace pole. If that's not something you're familiar with, it's sort of a round circular monument that some churches will have, some communities will display, that says on the side, may peace prevail on earth. And it says this in different languages all around it. It's sort of this reminder. It is a hope, it is a prayer for this universal concept that it may be realized in our world. Still, what does it mean? What does it mean to have peace, particularly from a lens of faith? In our wider culture, sometimes we think of peace as just being the absence of conflict and war. Yet there's so much more to the biblical understanding of peace. For peace, shalom as it is called in Hebrew, or eirene in Greek, this peace is not only about the absence of, it's not only about the absence of conflict, the absence of fighting and war, but it's about also the presence of something else. The most basic translation of shalom reveals some of this, where we realize shalom is a whole lot about wholeness and completeness. For example, one could say that a brick wall with many different bricks in it is in a state of shalom when every brick is in the right place and it's all together. It is a state of shalom. And then in the same way, we as people, we're complex beings. We're made up of a lot of different things. As communities, we're complex. We're made up of a lot of different pieces. As humanity, we're made up of a lot of different pieces. And when part of our being or part of our community or part of the greater world around us is out of alignment or is missing or has been torn down in some particular way, in those moments shalom is broken. And to restore it, to return to a state of shalom, a state of peace once more, there is a need for reconciliation. There's a need for rebuilding up. It's not just about stopping the destruction. It's not just about stopping the tearing down of ourselves or what's happening in our community or even in our world, but it's about then actively building up, repairing. So for the Grinch and the Who's in Whoville, I see this manifesting actually in a couple of different ways in the film. For example, it's pretty clear that the Grinch himself is not in a state of shalom within his own being, right? He is filled with disdain and hatred for this holiday. It's a feeling that consumes him. There's also clearly something missing from his life. He's not whole, as we have this metaphor of his heart being two sizes too small. There's something missing within him. So he himself is not in a state of completeness. He doesn't have peace within. And from this place of brokenness, he plots to steal Christmas, to take everything from the town that is a reminder of the holiday, that is a reminder of this festive season, to take the gifts, to take the food, to take the decorations. And the Grinch seems to believe that this will perhaps break some of the peace that the Who's might be experiencing, but also I wonder, as it seems that maybe he thought this would somehow repair his own brokenness. And so he does all of this. He goes and he takes everything that reminds him of Christmas. But what happens? He still hears them singing. He realizes that the peace within the Who's had not been taken, had not been disturbed. They still had their sense of wholeness as individuals, as people who realized that Christmas was a whole lot more about than about all the stuff. So they had some peace within them. Now, yes, we should acknowledge that the peace of their community was disturbed. There was a town-wide burglary where every building was broken into, right? So there's something that has been taken from them. And as a community, something has been taken from them. You might even say, looking at the vulnerability of having something like that happening in your town. But they celebrated Christmas anyway. And as the Grinch sees this, he has this change of heart. He himself is made whole again. As we hear about his heart growing, 3 sizes that day, something like that. He's made whole again within himself. So the Who's, they still have their own internal peace as they are singing their hearts out that morning. And the Grinch has now restored his own wholeness as his heart has been restored. So why not just end there? Well, it's because shalom hasn't been fully reconciled yet. There is still something that is broken that needs restoration. There is still a restoration of community and relationships that need to happen in order for shalom to be complete. They still need to be reconciled with one another. So, with that changed heart and that own perhaps internal shalom that the Grinch is feeling, he takes everything back to the Who's, and as he does that, they welcome him in. Their arms are open with acceptance, and they forgive him. Not an easy task to do. And they welcome him in. And in the end, they sit down, and what do? They share a meal together. And where does the Grinch sit? Pretty much in the seat of honor. And as we see that, we witness restorative peace. And this image of restorative peace, it's not only one that's found within the concept of shalom. It's not one that we only find in the story of the Grinch. But it is found in many different facets of our world, but throughout Scripture as well. And we see some of that in our readings today. In this reading from Isaiah, which is a rather classic reading for this time of the year, a reading where this picture of the peaceable kingdom is painted for us. And in it we hear this language of, with righteousness he shall judge for the poor and decide with equity for the oppressed of the earth. And in that, we hear this balancing that's happening, a restoration, if you will, of those who have been pushed asunder. God is lifting up. And that is the peace that God is bringing. When we hear about how the wolf and the lamb, the calf and the lion, the cow and the bear, the child and the snake, how they will live together. These beings that by their own instincts have been enemies, by the ways in which they have been destructive toward each other in some capacity. But what happens? We are told that there will be a change of heart, a change of instincts in that way, and that they will live in some sense of harmony. That is the peace that God is bringing. When we hear from Paul, who is encouraging the Romans to find harmony in their communities, especially as they consider, how do we welcome in those who are different from us? How do we welcome in the Gentiles into our communities of faith? And he encourages them into this extravagant welcome. A reminder that the message of Christ and the love that Christ brings is not only for some, but it is for all. That is the peace that God is bringing. And yet, as we hold all of these images, we are also reminded that peace, it is not easy. It is hard work, and yet it is holy work to seek a peace that is not simply the absence of conflict, which in and of itself, especially in our day and age, and especially as we look in the world around us, that in of itself is a big enough feat to just have an absence of conflict, right? But to then also have this presence of something greater, this restoration, this justice that comes forth, that is not only about stopping destruction, but rebuilding that which has been broken. To find a peace that includes that presence of justice and reconciliation, of care and compassion. It is not easy, but it is our call. Beloved people of God, the peace our God longs for us to embody and longs for our world to embrace, it is not quick. It is not easy work. It certainly takes more than the 26 minutes of runtime on that animated version of The Grinch. Right? Restorative peace does not happen that quickly. For the rebuilding of the broken places, the admitting the wrongs that have been done, the healing of the hurts, the being open to forgiveness, being vulnerable in the process, all of these things can be extremely difficult. All of these things can take time. And there's no one way of saying, here's what that would look like. Things can take time, yet may we never stop striving for such peace within ourselves, within our communities, within our world. May we do our part to not simply stop the breaking down of shalom, though we should do our part in that too, but may we also commit to the rebuilding and the restoring of the broken places. And whenever it is within our power, may we seek a peace and justice which reconciles us to one another. For when that happens, well, I think we see a glimpse of the peace that God is bringing. So be it, and may it be so. Amen.